An extra chapter for The Things They Carried, Johnny Doe. An extra chapter for The Things They Carried.
There's such a thing as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, now. I say now, in that it is a diagnosable illness, but back then, it was just boys with nightmares who saw too much. Ted was just a kid when he came, all wide-eyed and green. He came in with a sort of false swagger that he tried to play off as macho. I saw right through the kid, but I wasn't about to call him out in front of the guys on it. It would have killed him. He really enjoyed his stance with the guys after he inserted himself into the group. Ted was a real relaxed and agreeable guy. He seemed to make friends with each and every person. From talking about God with Kiowa to the best strip joints with Lee and Mitch. The kid knew his way around the conversation. He made the extra effort to ensure all the guys were on his side and friendly with him. Anytime he had a job to do, he would have a buddy to help him out. Someone else to go first on the raid. Not always did they say yes, but quite often they did accept. Unfortunately for Ted, the time someone else wouldn't travel out first was the time that would change him forever. We were on the outskirts of the forest, peering in on a small town. No one would ever notice it on a copter from above, being shaded by trees and all. In mine and the others' minds, the perfect town for a hideout. We knew we had to take this cluster of inconspicuous bungalows and destroy it. There's too high a chance of having VCs in there. It needed to happen. Jimmy sent out the orders for us to move in, and lo and behold, Ted was first to go in. He came in real low and almost slithering on the ground, but still on his feet. The kid had a knack for sneaking. It looked so natural. It made me think he used to go out at night, when his mom and pop were asleep, go drinking in a secluded area with his buddies, and then come home just before the sun peeked over the horizon, slithering, like now, right into his bed. His parents never knew what hit him, and the VCs wouldn't either. Ted saw a medium-sized abandoned house with no people in it, and a few curtains to block out the unsuspecting. So Jimmy flagged us all in to make a small base. Jimmy wanted us to infiltrate the surroundings and then search and destroy. Like we were ordered to. In a way, I had a tingling in my stomach, knowing that there could possibly be no VCs in here, and we're just destroying this place for nothing. But we did as we were told, regardless. Aimlessly, we fumbled in the dark, tripping a bit over the brush and our clunky boots. The only noise that night was breathing, and the squish of mud and the clanking of our ammo on our chests. Breathing heavy by the time we humped over the brush into the woods, the boys threw down their packs and started to situate. We were planning on staying the night and then planning on attacking in the morning. Jimmy checked the perimeter. He found the remnants of a small nest-looking object made of cotton and leaves in the corner of one of the rooms, but he disregarded it, assuming it must have been a raccoon or animal of some sort. He checked the last room and gave it a thumbs up, so we all took a breath and opened up our sea rations and talked the groggy night away. We knew the task ahead of us was going to just be another mission, another flattened town. We had to, for our friends, for our family, for our country. We needed to get all the VCs and get them good. Ted took the night watch because he couldn't sleep. He rolled into the corner and plopped right next to the window, just so we could see over the sill. The hours dragged on and the boys all ended up falling asleep, myself included. About an hour after the last person fell asleep, Ted started feeling himself get a bit drowsy out of the blue. He thought it would be best to do a brisk perimeter to stay awake and keep the blood flowing. So he gets up and walks to the other rooms and checks all the windows. He reaches the kitchen and hears a rustle. His senses heighten, and he hears every sound, sees every motion, and feels every difference in the air. Someone is near. He can almost taste it. He sees a shadow move ever so slightly near the back door and lunges toward the corner to block him from anything's sight. By instinct, he slinks towards the door, grasping tightly to his gun and prepared himself. He mustered up all of his strength and aimed at the shadow crouched next to the adjacent window. With 2 shots, it lay dead and motionless. Ted waited a few minutes, but what felt like hours, for the guys to come rushing in with their ammo ready to go. They all prepared for something to happen, but the house was far enough away from the town for no one to really have noticed 1 or 2 shots. Ted just stood there, about as motionless as the body lay on the ground. The guys were all poking him and prodding about what happened in why he woke us up for a damn raccoon, but it wasn't a raccoon. Henry Dobbins took a look and saw a small lump of flesh on the ground. He checked the horizon and saw no signs of anything else in the distance, so he opened the shattered glass door and saw what the shadow was. With the light of the moon, Dobbins was able to make out the figure. It was a small boy, about 4 or 5, covered in dirt, in a small ripped shirt and barefoot. This kid was skin and bones, and his already classically high cheekbones, what most Vietnamese had, jutted out of the boy's face like spires. He laid there. It almost seemed as if he was sleeping. Dobbins called the guys out, and Ted slinked into the house once he fully recognized what he did. Rat looked at his wound and felt for a pulse, but the kid was long gone. Dead instantly. Boy, Ted had a steady shot. Jim told the guys about the makeshift cotton bed he thought was an abandoned nest. But soon the connection was made that the boy had lived in the house. He was an orphan who had nowhere else to go, except for an old abandoned house all to himself. The boys decided to make him a grave outside the house. Since Dobbins went out and saw him first, he opted to dig the grave. Rat wrapped him in the extra cloth from the curtains and laid him in the shallow hole. Dobbins put dirt across and covered him completely. We all decided it looked a bit pathetic. Kiowa suggested a small grave marker out of the piece of plywood that was laying against the house, and then a prayer. He didn't know what to write since they had not even known his name, so they decided to call him Johnny Doe. Kiowa said the prayer, and the boys lowered their heads and folded their hands as they would in a normal Sunday Mass. It was closure, and some of the guys felt better knowing the kid had a place to himself. The sun started peeking across the horizon, so Jim instructed the bunch to gather up their packs and get a move on. Ted solemnly got on his equipment and followed it into formation. I know they say war changes people, but I never really believed it until I saw Ted change. He became completely different, sleepless nights and waking up with sweat coming out of his pores. Drinking later and longer, even after the rest of us had crawled into bed. Ted wasn't his go-lucky self anymore, but no one would ever understand the depth of his trauma. Johnny Doe was singed into Ted's memories forever. There's such a thing